All right, so 3, 2, 1. There it is, Captain Brad. Welcome to Flight Experience. Welcome to the cockpit of a Boeing 737, and welcome to Canberra Airport. So in a moment, we're going to push back from the gate, turn our engines on, find a runway to take off from, and then we'll head over towards Sydney. So first things first, what's best is if we just do a quick run through of the controls. So if I take your book for a second, we'll just go through the basic ones here. So this thing in front of you here, I know you know it's called a yoke, and I know left goes left, right goes right, pull back you go up, push down you go down. I know you've seen 1,000 movies and you have your own setup. The main thing you got to remember that's going to be different for you, possibly, although you have flown the 737 at home, is the delay. So when you're talking about these bigger planes, you have a delay with everything you do. So when you are hand flying, there will be a bit of a delay, which means you like nice smooth movements. The faster and jerkier you are with it, the harder it's going to be. Now you have some foot pedals down here. Do you know what they're called? No, they're called rudder pedals. So they're attached to rudder, which is that tail at the back, and it's also attached to your nose wheel. But so left moves the wheel left, right moves the wheel right, but they're attached to a maximum 6-degree turn. So they only turn a little bit each way. So they're great for keeping you on runway. It's not so great for getting you there. So you have a quarter black wheel on your left there. It's called a tiller wheel. That's also attached to the nose wheel, but with a greater range of movement. So you use that to get yourself to and from, and you use your feet when you're on the runway. Now the reason I don't have one over here is because the captain will always take care of operations on the ground. So even if we've decided that I'm going to be the one taking off, you'd still get us onto the runway. Coming up here, do you know what this one is?
Landing gear.
Correct. So that's a good one. It's nice and easy after takeoff. You know it's technically a first officer's job.
Yeah.
So if you're one, you just call positive rate, gear up, and I'll do it for you. But if you want to do it yourself, because you've got a very lazy first officer that you don't trust, you can come and just reach over and lift the lever out, which unlocks it, and bring it all the way up. That's going to bring those wheels into the belly of our plane. Now when you're coming into land, you're going to lift it out and into the down position. Those 3 green lights signify that the wheels are locked, so it's safe to land. So that's what you'll be looking for when you're coming into land. Just to the left of it, this isn't even testing you because the name's just there. It's an auto brake, and I don't know how they thought of that name, but it brakes for us automatically. Yeah. So they're just brakes on the wheels, 1, 2, 3 in max different settings. You have it set to RTO. That stands for rejected takeoff. So once you set your takeoff power and you're bustling down the runway, if you saw something you didn't like and you pulled back on that throttle while you're still on the ground, those brakes would kick in hard. So if you ever if you go home and YouTube rejected takeoffs, they glow red hot. They're used so strong. And I think that's always a nice thing to know. If you pull back on the power, we at least start to slow down, right? All right, coming onto your side, this screen here, it's called a PFD, or a primary flight display, holds all the information you need to fly a plane. So you have 2 tapes, either side of a big picture in the middle here. Are you familiar with what the tape on the left measures?
That's your speed.
Correct. Do you know what it's measured in? Testing you now.
Yeah, you are. No.
Well, you started.
Knots.
Yeah, I was going to say you started with no. Perfect. It's in knots, exactly right. On the right here, do you know what that one's measured in?
Altitude.
Correct. Do you know what that's measured in?
Feet.
Correct. And that's feet, crucially, above sea level.
Yeah.
So we're already at 1,900 feet in Canberra. But we also have what's called a radalt. So that's telling us how high we are above the ground there. Now this picture in the middle here, do you know what that helps you do?
Horizon.
Perfect. Yep. It's called an artificial horizon.
Yeah.
And it tells you what's going on outside. So if we end up in a storm or cloud or whatever it might be, we still know what's happening with our plane. That's in every plane, from the smallest little Cessna to the biggest Boeing. Every plane has one of them. Blue represents the sky, brown represents the ground. Those 2 lines are your wings, and that dot in the middle is your nose. So that's the important one there. That's you. Now these bigger lines above the horizon, something you may not know is they go up in sets of 5. So we're going to hold the dot, the nose of the plane, on different lines throughout the flight. So on takeoff, for example, you're going to pull back on the yoke, waiting for that dot to get up to the 5, 10, 15 degree line there. And that's how you read that one there. All good so far?
Yeah.
I know I overload you with information.
No.
Don't stress too much. It would become some more obvious when you see it in action. So we'll come over onto this screen here. Yeah. This one's a navigation display. So are you sort of familiar with how to read this one?
Yeah, that's like your GPS.
Yeah, it works pretty similar to Google Maps, that sort of thing, on a basic level.
When you type it into the FMC, it comes up. Your stars and your SIDS.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in literally about a minute. So all the important stuff is that you're pointing up. Everything else will revolve around you just like a compass does. You can change it, so you can have a center view, or you can have it down the bottom here as well. And then these colourful bits here, if I zoom us out, we might find a few more. No, we can get a weather radar up. We have it on terrain at the moment, which is this one here.
Okay.
If you pushed weather radar, then you'd have a weather radar up here too. But with the terrain, so red means you're underneath it, yellow means you're roughly level with with it. Green means you're over the top. So that's just zoomed out to 20 miles, that's to 10 miles, and that's to 5 miles.
Okay.
So they're plenty far away. But as we take off, you'd hope the yellow to turn green and then eventually disappear. Now, also, when we do have a weather radar on there as well, and if once we turn our transponder on, any other planes that are already up in the air will pop up on here, just as an added safety feature. Have you ever heard of TCAS?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's painting sort of every transponder in every plane paints a 3D world. If it notices that 2 transponders are on a collision course, it'll tell one plane to climb and one plane to descend. And still, since we put that in, there hasn't been one mid-air collision, which is just such a useful thing. 2 engine management displays here. We manipulate them with our throttle quadrant, which is this bit here. And there shouldn't be too much you don't recognize from a car. You'll get your oil pressures, your oil temperatures, how hot your engines are, the revs, that sort of thing. We just have 2 of them because we have 2 rather than the 1 we have in the car. But yeah, in here, the throttle we'll talk about when we've actually got some engines. But this one just above it, have you ever heard of reverse thrust before?
This one here?
Yeah.
When you land.
Perfect. And it helps you
brake.
Perfect. Exactly right.
Slow down.
30% of your braking actually comes from the reverse thrust. So we're talking about, Kath doesn't mind too much, but we're talking about when you come into land and the engines get really noisy. Actually kind of sounds quite scary from time to time. That's the best sound in the world. That one means we've landed safely. So it just pushes the air forwards rather than backwards. So if you're anything like me, my favorite thing in the world is to go to the airport on a rainy day, because you can see when they engage that reverse thrust, all the water just goes flying out the front. Yeah, it's great. Okay, cool. So that's the second thing we use to slow down, remembering the auto brake. The brakes in our wheels was the first. The third and final thing, something called a speed brake. It's also known as a spoiler, and it works just like a car spoiler. Do you know what they look like, or where they are?
On the
testing
wings?
you now. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, they're the ones that actually come up. So as soon as your wheels hit the ground, you notice all the panels pop up. So the reason it's called a spoiler, it works just like a car spoiler. Forces air on top of the wings, pushes your plane into the ground, which makes your brakes more effective. So you're not skimming across the surface, it's actually forcing you onto the ground there. Now this is something you have to arm during your flight. You'll notice a bump in the metal just here.
Yeah.
Keeps it locked when you want it to be locked.
Oh, okay.
Also helps you arm it. All you're going to do is pull it back a smidge, pull it towards you, and drop it on the bump. Now, when your wheels hit the ground, this will automatically come all the way back, and it's one less thing for you to have to worry about. Now, this is also used in flight. So if you've ever had the window seat in a plane and you've noticed the panel just up a little bit, it's because we have speed limits under 10,000 feet. And these planes are I'm sure you know from the simulator, very difficult to slow down if you're descending as well. So you can actually bring it out to there, and it'll just pop up a little bit, create a little bit more drag and slow you down. And that's not uncommon to see that. All right, these big wheels are going to be spinning throughout the flight. The autopilot takes care of it. When you're hand flying, I'll use my thumb to help it out. But have you ever heard of trim wheels before?
Yeah.
Yep. Do you know that one's a bit more complicated, that one?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Yeah, so it's on the flat part of the tail, the elevator, and it just moves it ever so, just to keep it nice and stable. So you shouldn't have to be holding it all the way back here just to maintain level flight. So when you let go of the controls, I'll use those wheels to make sure that the nose, that dot, is still staying roughly in the same place.
Okay.
But I'll take care of that one for us today, and you can have a play around with it too if you'd like. Now on this side, I'm sure you've heard of these ones before. Do you know what they are?
Oh, the flap.
They are indeed. Do you know what they are? They're off the back, exactly right. Do you know what they help you do?
Take off and land.
Yes. Do you know why or how?
Something to do with the wind.
With the wing?
Wind.
Yeah, yeah, with the airflow, yeah, absolutely.
Airflow.
So yeah, it effectively, on a really basic, it makes the wing larger, which means it can generate more lift. This is a little bit more complicated than I give most people, which means you're capable of flying at slower speeds. So the lift helps you take off, which is why it helps you when you bring the flaps out, and it also helps you land. So every time you see those panels pop off the back, it's from about half an hour before you land, you know the plane is slowing down, because it reduces the minimum speed that you're capable of flying at. So say with the flaps up, you can't go slower than 210 knots. Down here, you can bring it all the way down to 140 knots. So it's a big difference. So that the slower you go, the easier it is to land. Now we'll bring some flaps out as soon as we push back from the gate. It's a good thing for you to see next time you're a passenger. But the most complicated one, this one here, parking brake. Works like a handbrake in a car. Push it goes off. Pull it comes on. You reckon you can handle that one? Yeah. I reckon you got that. Okay, this is your pedestal panel down here. Holds all your radio and communication aids. So both sides, it's important to know, do the same thing. Captain and first officer operate on independent systems. So if yours was to break, mine would still work, and vice versa, just as an added safety feature. Top row, you dial in the frequency of the tower. They'll give you permission to take off, permission to land, all that jazz. Or you can't do anything without air traffic control permission. Now the ones underneath are really cool. These are nav aids. Have you ever heard of ILS, instrument landing systems? So you know they're
Beep, 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 beep.
it's the Morse code.
Yeah.
This is my favorite thing. It's unbelievable. So there are beacons at all major airports that will broadcast their signal along runway lines. If you dialed in the frequency of the beacon in Sydney, and we can do this if you'd like, you can dial in the frequency of the beacon here, get your mode control panel, your autopilot to line up with it. It'd even descend. If you didn't touch anything, it'd pull the power back, it'd flare for you, it'd just come in for a perfect landing every time. Yeah, really amazing for safety, really sad for pilots because we don't even get to land the planes anymore. But yeah, we can certainly have a look at that if you'd like. Down here, it's called a transponder. Yep, do you know what that one does?
No, not really.
No, so it's unfortunately a little bit more famous. So MH370 sort of made it a bit more famous. This is what pops up on air traffic control radar. So as you flick yourself on, which we do just before the runway, you'll pop up on their screens, and we flick ourselves back off as we land so we don't congest their screen up with all those planes that are already on the ground, which is why you have to be able to just turn it off. This is also that TCAS that we were talking about.
Okay.
So when we flick ourselves on, that's when the traffic will pop up on your radar there. Okay.
So does that tells air traffic control actually where you are?
Yep. Have you ever heard of a squawk code?
Oh, squawk code, yeah.
It's this one you see. So you'd push that ident button to squawk where you are.
Yeah.
Okay, mode control panel. We're going to play around with this a lot up in the air, so we'll blast for it now. 2 systems, captain and first officer, and this controls everything for us. So we'll play around with that up in the air, but coming up to the daunting overhead panel, there are a lot of buttons up there, not going to lie. It does take a long time to learn what they all do. Fortunately for Boeing, fortunately for you as well, they like to group all the important things into sections. So I'll go through all the sections with you. On your side is fuel. So everything to do with fuels over here. These are fuel pumps here. So there are 2 tanks in the wing and 1 in the middle. These are your 2 right wing tank, left wing tank, middle tank. Coming through the middle here is all your electronic stuff. So that one's your master battery switch, which turns everything on at the start, just like a car battery does. And then this one's your bus transfer. So this decides what's generating your electricity. So at the moment, it's off our generators, which are our engines, and it's also off, have you ever heard of an APU?
APU, yeah.
So it's off everything, which means either it's on the battery, but there's no battery discharge coming out, which means it must be on ground power. So if you've ever seen those cables going up, exactly right. So we're going to have to transfer it off our ground power before we push back. And then, coming through the middle, your crowd favorites, your emergency exit lights, smoking lights, your fasten seatbelt sign. Just to the right of it's your hydraulics, which is just like power steering, makes everything easier to use. And on the right is everything to do with air. So this grey one's your air conditioning, which is fairly self-explanatory. It's actually also how you start your engines. I'm not sure if you've heard too familiar with how jet engines start. We're about to find out. And then this air pressurization down here. So we put in the flight altitude where we're climbing up to, 18,000, and it will automatically pressurize for us, which I've always thought's nice of us. Always nice to let them breathe in the back when you get higher up. Apart from that, you have your engine starters down the middle here. Your flights down on either side, and your engine starters in the middle. So yes, it is complicated. Yes, there are a lot of buttons up there, but having to remember 4 or 5 sections, especially in an emergency situation, is a lot easier than having to remember each individual button and switch, which you do get to eventually. But in an emergency situation, you want to know where it is pretty quickly. And that's all the controls of a Boeing 737. That easy, right? I know I overload you. Your IRSs are up here, if that's what you're looking for. Yep. So the stuff I didn't go through, which is a little bit more complicated, your IRSs, which is, you're sort of familiar with them. They're like even more accurate GPS. So GPS has a signal. We have in-house gyroscopes. And then these ones here is your heating. So the higher up you go, the greater chance of icing. So we have heaters on our windows, on our what's called ProPeat, the instruments, and we can put them on our wings and engines as well. All right, so now that we've got all that stuff out the way, let's try and start some engines up. So I'm going to give you this back now. That one's for you. And these are standard operating procedures. So these are our ones here, and we'll just start with the before start check there. So if we go through them, so you got that. Yep. So the first one says fuel pump switches.
Fuel pump switches
on. Yep. So we need to bring this one out and down. And then these 2 as well, out and down. Perfect. Next one.
Passenger signs on.
So, you can do that one for me. Push that one down. That's it. Thank you.
Electric hydraulic pump switches on.
Yep. So these are the 2 hydraulic switches there, which I've just brought down before we got in. So they're on.
Anti-collision light switch on.
That one is in this aircraft. That's the door just to shut the doors. So we've put that one down because otherwise we get a master caution happening. So that's good. So complete before start checklist. Cool. So we'll go to the next bit, which is the engine start procedure.
Release parking brake.
That's this one here.
Initiate pushback.
Okay, so we'd make a radio call now to the in-house. Who are we flying for? Sea Air? What's the name of our company today? Brad Air?
Qantas.
Qantas, okay, we'll go into the Qantas one where we just request a pushback, which they'll give us. Before we do that, though, we need to transfer the power because they're just going to unplug the ground power now. So we'll transfer the power into our APU. So lift this one out and down. Perfect. This one too. Now it's off. See how this light's off?
Yep.
So it means it's on our APU. That's what's lighting everything up now.
Okay.
So good stuff. It means when we actually push back, we'll actually not lose our power straight away. So I'm going to initiate a pushback for us, and we're going to start our engines up. So this is when you're a passenger in the back, you'll be able to hear them turn off the air conditioning. So if we go on to the next page now. What is it? What's the first thing it says? Engine start.
Start engine 2 before engine 1.
Yep. So that's the engine start into 2. Sorry. It says
Start engine 2.
this one here. Pack switches.
Where am I? Sorry.
Top
pack
there.
switches.
Yep.
Off.
Okay. So the pack switches are the air conditioning.
Yep.
So we're going to turn off the air conditioning now. So if you lift this one out and up, I'll do the same with this one. So you've turned off the left air conditioning, and I've turned off the right air conditioning. Now, what we're about to do is we're about to push the air from the air conditioning unit into one of our engines, and that's what's going to start those fans spinning up. So you'll hear them turn off the air conditioning in the back, and you'll be like, "Give us our air back," and then you're going to push that air into the engine, which will start the fan spinning. Once they start spinning fast enough, you'll inject some fuel in as well, and then we'll hope for some combustion effect. So turning off the aircon means it's not going into the back anymore, which is good. Now we want to open up a small hole, an isolation valve in our air conditioning, so we can push the air somewhere else. So lift the valve out and down into the open position for me. Thank you. So that's opened up a little hole in there. Now we need something to push. We need something to push the air from the air conditioning into our engines, and we use that APU, the little jet engine in the back. So if you lift the APU out and down into the down position there, turning on the bleed, that's now going to push that air from the air conditioning into that first engine. So you have a hole in your air conditioning, you have a way to push the air. Now you just need a hole in your engine, a little valve in the engine, and then that's going to push the air into the engine. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. This, if you push it in and to the left into GRD for me, push it in first and left, you've opened up a little hole in your engine too. You can hear.
Oh, engine 2.
This is engine 2. So this is how fast the fan on the inside is spinning. This here, thank you, is what feeds fuel into your engine as well. Now we're pushing air in there, which is starting the fan to spin up. Now we want to add some fuel in and hope for a combustion effect. So push it.
25%.
Exactly right. Yeah, look at you. Out and then up into the idle and push it in. And now this is how hot your engine is. So we're hoping for an increase in speed. Now a good captain would keep his finger on it in case we had a fire, a hot start, and this would balloon out here and you just cut off the fuel straight away. Now when we get to about 56, this is a percent, it's on its own power, and we'll get this will click off and that'll just run on its own way. We'll let it stabilize and then we'll start the left engine a similar way. All making sense so far? Yeah, so that should flick off. It was just stuck a little bit. So now you can see we're just waiting for a stabilized engine here. So we're wanting it roughly 2, 4, and 6. So you can see resting at 2, which is 20%, 4, and 6. Nicely done. All right, so now let's start the left engine. Push that one over. Yep, and we've still got the same setup. So now we just need to open our hole in the left engine instead. Open the hole. Fan's starting to spin, and you said 25, but it's actually, you can read it here. Idle descent when N2 RPM reaches 20%.
Yeah.
So as long as it's over 20, you're fine. And when you're coming back down, when you shut them down, anything over under 25%, and you can let the passengers out. So you can lift that one out and up into the idle. We'll feed some fuel in. We're hoping for a combustion effect in here. Give it a push. But yeah, that should be fine. There you go. So next time you're a passenger, you'll be able to listen out for it. And you every time they turn it off, I'm like, give us the air back. Have you ever been in a plane? Either of you been in a plane where the aircon's broken? It's not fun. No, hope it never happens. It heats up really quickly. So yeah, you want them to start the engines as fast as possible. So we're looking for 56. This one should click over. There you go. So it's clock clicks back out, and we have some engines.
It's still on G.
It did click out. Did you hear it click out? It's just I've misaligned these, so I need to open these back up. Sorry about that, Brad. Okay, let's go to the next. So now we've started that. Wait for the engine to stabilize and start switch to reset to off, which we just did. So let's go to our before taxi checks.
Before taxi checklist.
Yep. Which is just there.
Set flaps 5.
So these are your flaps here. So when you have to promise me you're going to get a window seat, Brad. But at this point, you'll look out the window and you'll see some panels pop off the back. So if you can bring the flaps to 5, you're just going to lift it up and burrow through 1. So drop it and lift back up. Yep, there you go, perfect. Into the 5. That's it. Now we only have little windows. We can't see our wings, but we have a flap indicator. You can see it's coming over to the 5,
okay.
and that's how we know. So that's doing its job. Great stuff.
Generators on.
So now remember it's the little jet engine in the back that we're powering everything. We want to shut that down now. So we want to transfer the power onto our engines, our generators. So if you do the left one, I'll do the right one. Down, out, and down. Now it is off our APU. It's not on our battery. We don't have any ground power, so it has to be on our engines.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Anti-ice is required.
Yeah. So we're going Canberra, Sydney in summer, so it's 22 degrees outside at the moment. We're fine.
Yeah. Pack switch is auto.
Let them breathe them back again. You reckon that's pretty nice of us, I'd say. So if you do we just want to turn the aircon back on?
Yeah.
So if you do that one, I'll do this one. What I say about a lazy first officer. That's it. So we just bring him into the auto position again.
Isolation valve switch, auto.
We don't need the hole anymore, do we? Because we're not pushing the air anywhere else. So I'll do that one and just bring it into the auto for you. There you go.
APU bleed off.
That makes sense too. We don't need any sort of push power to push the air anywhere else.
Engine start switch is continuous.
So push this in and to the right to continuous. And that's just for for takeoff, the engines are just always going to try and start. In case we had an engine failure, it will automatically try and start again. So, yep. And then the last one. Should be, I think we missed it at the second last one there. Second last?
Oh, APU off.
Out and up, because we obviously don't need the little jet engine.
Up.
Yep. There you go, into the off. Done.
Complete before taxi checklist.
Checked. All right. So all of this stuff, I think it's just easier if I just tell you about. So that's the start, so we can push this down here for you. And let's go have some fun, guys. So we're going to turn on some taxi lights. You won't be able to see this from the passenger side, but we turn on 1, 2, 3 taxi lights because it's always smart to be nice and visible. That's it. Perfect. And now we want to give ourselves a bumper power, and we're going to do a big right-hand turn. So we're actually going that direction. So we're going to do a bit of a 270. Yeah. So push on that parking brake to turn it off. Now, if you move the throttle up, you're going to see a white line appear underneath, and the engines will settle wherever that white line is. So put your right hand on this, bring it somewhere, that white line between the 3 and the 4. I know there's no 3 there, but if you just keep moving it forward nice and smooth, perfect, keep going. Just keep going. You'll see it start to come up. Keep going. Bit faster than that. You're all right. There you go. It's creeping up between the 3 and the 4. That's it. That'll do. Just to give us a boost of power there. And remember that tiller wheel on the left side, that's just like a steering wheel in the car.
Oh,
so if you push it up, we go right, push it down, we go left. So if you hold that up for me for a second, we'll start that turn around to the right. So yeah, there you go, perfect. So we're gonna go around this way and find a yellow line to taxi us over.
Oh, wow.
So this is the hardest part about the flight because there's no feedback through that control. So we're gonna, bugger off Qantas, excuse my language. So we're just going to keep going that way, and we'll take that taxiway so we don't hit the plane. Air traffic control's losing their minds. Okay, good, he's getting out of our way here. So we're going to go around this way, back that way. Yep. So that's it, all the way up. I'll help you out with the engine now. So I'm just going to help you with the rudder pedals too. We'll just turn on a dime here. You got your toes on those brakes by any chance? Just lift them up. It's interesting. Oh, mine's stuck. Interesting. Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. So just hold it all the way up. There we go. Beautiful. That's it. All right, and this is the start of the runway over here. So we're going to backtrack that way. So we're going to go along the runway here. So turning right now. And we're breaking a few speed limits here so we can get a go on the when we're in Sydney, we can do a go round. So if you stay right on the left side here, and we're going to do another turn around and go that way. So that we're just going to the start of the runway now.
So we're in Canberra.
We're in Canberra, yeah. Not the biggest airport in the world, this one. And we're surrounded by a few mountains here too, but nothing we need to worry about too much. So you see the GS down the bottom left of your screen there? Yeah, our speed limit's 25 on the straights and 10 on the turns, but we're just sort of fast forwarding this bit because I know you know how to taxi. So I'm going to bring your power back now. And if you get yourself nice and close to this left edge here, and we'll do a nice big turn around to the right when you're ready. All right, go for it. So just hold it all the way up. That's it. And I'll help you with this as well. So you can actually turn these pretty well on a dime. Have you ever seen a 747 turn? Do it, like demonstrate its turning?
No.
It's so cool. It just really does just do it right on a dime for you. All right, and we're going to line ourselves up with the center line of this runway here. Perfect. So, yep, that's it. A little bit to the left. Yeah, just push down now. That's it. Just down. Yeah, down that way. See this bit here? That's the nose of your plane there. So if you line the center line up with that for me. Yeah, that's better. Might even be easier for you to use this. See that white dotted line there?
Yeah.
That's the runway heading. So if you put the put that at your 12 o'clock, yeah, you got it. And then I know it's unusual, but we're going to bring ourselves down to a complete stop, and air traffic control are going to freak out. So bring the power all the way down for me. That's it. Chuck the parking brake on by pulling that one back. Nicely done, Captain. All right, so now that we're on the runway, we'll get ourselves, we'll finish off the checks we need to do before we take off. So bring your retractable lights and fixed lights all the way down, and we'll turn them on. Yep, strobe lights, flick them down as well. Perfect. Turn your transponder on, so flick this to the right to TARA, that weird switch. And that means we've popped up on their radar screens. Perfect. Last thing we do in this point, hit this attend button in. Lets the flight crew know to take their seats and buckle up. So we're about to take off.
Flight crew, prepare for takeoff.
Yep, that's the one. Yep. So we don't really like talking to them. So we just push that button and they sit down. Okay, Captain. What we're going to do for our takeoff? You can see we're going to go take off, and then we're going to join this magenta line that you have here. If I zoom you out, that's what we're ending up doing there. So on your page here, I'm going to have the legs. So this is the brains of the computer here. So we've put in so if I go over to your route, we're going from Canberra to Sydney. We've put in a company route here. So if we go next page, you can see we're going out of Canberra using this. This is your street, and this is where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
So we're going to use this street to get to Vicky. Then we're going to use this bit to get to Rivet, which is, if I zoom you out even more, there.
Yeah.
And then you can see we're going direct from Sydney to there. So if we go to our legs page, DIR 35, we're going to be at 165 knots, and we're going to be at 2,392. When we hit Vicky, it expects to be at 230 knots. And it figured out what speed we're going to be at, what altitude. This flies the plane for us, and it's super impressive. But if we go to the next page, it's telling us that we're going to end up at Sydney at 304 knots and at 18,000 feet. Now that doesn't seem like the best idea, considering we want to land there. But we don't really have any. We have an idea of what the weather's doing in Sydney, but we don't know. So just before we descend, we'll get the current weather, and we'll know what runway we're going to land on, and then we can put in a bit more information into here. So for the moment, we can just take off. So I'm going to leave that on the legs page. I'm going to have mine on the climb page here. So you can see climbing up to 18,000. It's going to target a speed of 290 knots. And when the flaps are still out, it won't go past 230 knots because we can't go past 250. All right, that all makes sense?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, so for the takeoff, in a moment, you're going to push on the parking brake to turn it off. You're going to bump the throttle up to the 4, looking for a white line underneath. You're then going to push these buttons. See these black ones?
Toga.
Yes, toga buttons. They're going to automatically set full takeoff power for you. That way you can keep yourselves on the runway with your feet. Left goes left, right goes right. You're going to want to use your hands. It's just what you're used to.
Yeah.
Try and steer with your feet. And all we're doing is waiting to get enough speed that we can take off safely. So as a good first officer, I'll let you know the speeds we're passing.
Yeah.
80 knots, V1, rotate.
Yeah.
When I say rotate, that's when the magic happens. Just pull back consistently and smoothly towards you, looking outside. As soon as that nose starts to come off the ground, just hold that much back pressure. Okay. No need to keep pulling back, because then we run the risk of stalling. So once we do that, you're going to take your eyes from outside into this screen, and you're going to get that dot up to the 5, 10, 15 degree line. Now, would you like to do this exactly like an airline would, or do you want to just have a bit more fun with it?
No, I don't mind.
You're the captain, mate.
We'll do it like an airline.
Like an airline?
Yeah,
okay, so you're going to get that up to the 15 degree line, but you're going to keep an eye on this.
Yeah.
When it starts going up, you'll say positive rate, gear up, and I'll get your gear up, and we're going to go from there. Okay? So all you're doing is getting the dot up to the 5, 10, 15, and because of how you have these trim wheels set up, you can, when it gets close to that line, just let go.
Okay.
All right? Good luck, Captain. I'll cycle that fasten seatbelt sign. Kath is being a very patient passenger back there, but we're about to take off now, so you can push on this parking brake to turn it off. Bump the throttle up to the 4 just to make sure they're spooling up at a similar speed. Keep going. And they're spooling up perfectly, so you can hit those toga buttons on the inside there. So in these ones here, not on the side, yeah, those ones. So just push those ones in for me. That's it. So you can actually just reach over the top for that. And there we go. All right, so we're off and racing. A little bit of left pedal because we had a bit of a wind pushing us from left to right. Perfect. Beautiful. All right, that's 80 knots. Nicely held off. Hands on the yoke. V1, rotate. So pulling towards you, keep pulling back till the nose comes off. Hold that, feet off the pedals, up to that 15 degree line there. And call positive rate, gear up.
Positive rate, gear up.
Gear up, Captain. And get it in those crosshairs there. Very nice start. Excellent. All right, so if I hit LNAV now, we can follow the magenta lines there. So these, try and get that dot in these crosshairs here. So nice and smooth is absolutely spot on. That's it, very nice. So what we're doing here is just keep getting in line with these magenta lines here. So if you're, do you want to just sort of hand fly it just for a little bit so you get the feel of it?
Yeah.
Sure. So whenever you'd like, we can put the autopilot on and we'll do a few after takeoff checks, but just have fun hand flying it for the moment. Nice and smooth and slow. So stop there for a second. See how the crosshair's gone over the other side? So you'll have to turn to the right to get it in there. And that pesky delay really gets you. Very nice. So you can see how you just got yourself perfectly in line with that magenta diamond, magenta line, I should say. Very nice indeed. All right, Captain. Did I mention the lazy first officer? Yeah. I think I may have done. So you got some few after takeoff checks you need to do. So let's hit this CMD button for a second.
After takeoff checklist.
Yes, Captain. So you want to turn to the left. That's it. All right, stop there for a second. Stop. Turning back to the right now. So you want those two triangles to be lined up when that's close to your 12 o'clock there. Close to where those crosshairs are. Stop there for a second. And that's looking pretty nice. So hit this CMD button. Stands for command. Let go of the controls. That's it. And your job's done for the day, Captain. So see this speed, how it's just gone past the green one. See how it's about to go past the green up there? That up, it signifies the minimum speed that you're capable of flying at without any flaps. So see how we are now faster than that speed? It means you're allowed to bring the flaps from 1 all the way up. Okay. So you can lift that up and into 0. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. Nicely done, Captain. All right, there's a few things you have to do by recall, by memory, and then we can do the rest of them by the checklist. So first things first, landing gear is going to come up and into the middle off position for me. Nicely done, Captain. That just turns the pump off so you don't burn it out through the flight. We obviously don't need any brakes on our wheels, so you can turn that one off for me.
Which one's up?
Just up one. Now lights. These two on the left are retractable. Not the most aerodynamic of things. If you flip them all the way up, it flips them in and we're more streamlined. So that's turned them off. Flip them up again or flip them in. Perfect. 1, 2, 3 on the right there. They're taxi lights. We don't need them when we're in the air. Nicely done, Captain. Feel like we just turned to the right there? That is because we've hit Vicky and now we're heading over to Cullen. And at Cullen, we should be at our cruise level. What we want to do is move this purple line onto that one. So you can see the heading is 009. Turn this to the right, so past 360 to 009. So you're moving that purple line in line with that. Now the reason we do that is in case the autopilot was to fail, you still know what route to do. All right, so this happens quickly, I know, so don't stress if it's overloading you at the moment. When you're passing through 10,000 feet, we have a few more things to do. The last of your lights can come up because there's much less traffic here. That's it, perfect. And now when you pass, are you familiar with how we measure altitude?
No.
Excellent, I can teach you something at least. So below 10,000 feet, every single pilot that's in the air needs to know what the pressure is outside because that's going to affect what your altitude readings are. So everyone finds out what the area hectopascals are, and everyone's using the correct altitude down to a foot or two. It's that accurate. Now above 10,000 feet, there's not a lot of terrain, especially in Australia, that you have to worry about, and there's a lot less traffic as well. So it doesn't matter if you're not exactly accurate from how far you are from the ground, as long as you are the same as long as all the planes above 10,000 feet are using the same measurement. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So now that you're above 10,000 feet, if you push this standard button in and look at this altitude when you push that button in, just changed it a tiny bit. So now you're using a standard of measurement that everyone is using above 10,000, and I'm going to do the same on my side. Nice, Captain. All right, after takeoff checks. So, PM means pilot monitoring. And then when we're over here, PF is pilot flying. So I'm the one monitoring, so technically my job, but you're just double checking me. So the engine bleeds, we're just going to make sure they're still on. So these ones are on. Packs, the air conditioning, we want to make sure they're still cooling down in the back. Landing gear, up and then off. You turned it up, and then you've turned it into the off position. Flaps, up and no lights. Up and no lights illuminated. After takeoff checks complete, Captain. All right, so I know that all happens quickly, but did it all make sense?
Yeah.
So what you did here is you put the CMD button on, and what we already had pushed was VNAV and LNAV. Have you heard of these ones?
Yeah.
Yep. So you know that VNAV is your vertical, it's controlling both your height and your speed, and your LNAV is working out your left and rights here. So what's up here in these green boxes is what the autopilot, what the mode control panel is flying at the moment. You can see it's VNAV and LNAV, and it's just trying to maintain the most speed it can do to get us up there. So that is now your job for the rest of your day as the pilot flying. It is exactly no reading a book, no watching a movie. This is why I'm still doing this 2 years later. It's because I actually get to fly this. Whereas if I worked for an airline, I wouldn't even get the landing gear. I would do exactly what you did, pull back, get someone else to do that, push that button, my job's done for the day. If the visibility is no good, I wouldn't even land it. So these, it's unbelievable what these planes are capable of. Now, did you hear that noise?
Yeah.
That means we're 900 feet from the altitude we're going to level out at. So you can see here, if we're going up to 38,000 feet, for example, you might get distracted and you know, you got other things going on. You'll get that little noise to make sure that we do level out at the altitude we want to level out at.
Because we're at the top of the climb.
Exactly right. So we reached that TC bit, and you can see on my screen here, it's gone from the climb page onto a cruise page here. So now you can, it's telling you what it's going to try and do. It says, really, optimally, we should be going up to 36,700 feet, but we're not going to have time to do that. So it's going to target a speed of 303 knots. And if we look over here, up here, 303 knots, and you can see it's speeding up from 290 all the way up to 303. So yeah, these things are the reason we don't have engineers in planes anymore. This is the reason that we don't fly planes as much as we used to. We still get to, and you know, we still have to do simulator checks and make sure that we do know how to fly them. But yeah, no, these things absolutely fly the plane for us. So any questions so far? I know I just talked at you for about half an hour straight.
It's just amazing.
It blows my mind every day. I love my job here.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, no, it's not a bad gig. This one.
Seen the view?
It's not a bad one. We'll probably ruin it at some point with a thunderstorm. But for the moment, being up here, man, is just. Have you ever got yourself down to Bankstown or anything like that and got in a small plane?
Oh, yeah, a few months ago last year, I flew up to Armidale.
Awesome. I love Armidale Airport. I did a lot of flying up in Port Macquarie and used to go down to Armidale.
Carinado or Carinado.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been fun. very different from these sorts of things.
The Blue Mountains.
Yeah, it's bumpy.
No.
Was it? You were lucky.
Yeah,
I hate going out there.
We got a good day.
Yeah, nicely done. I much prefer flying over on the coast because you don't get any of those. You know, obviously the mountains around there, air just hits it, and the amount of unstable air around.
And then when we came back in, we flew over. I think it was the Hunter Valley, the power stations.
Yeah,
or I think it was Lithgow, and
Did you see Lake Macquarie at all?
Yeah, I was on another side.
Yeah.
I was trying to look and I'm thinking, where are we?
It's beautiful though.
And I went, there's power stations at Muswellbrook, and then we're going via Lithgow.
I learned how to fly out of Cessnock, so that was my training area.
My hometown's Maitland.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the reason I picked up there was because the training area was ridiculous. It was just having Lake Macquarie, Newcastle, and the Hunter Valley all within the little area that I was allowed in. I had the best time.
Yeah,
it was so good. Okay, so we've moved on. Now we're heading over to Towral. So let's move the purple bug onto 050 now. So this one here, just as a safety thing.
To the right.
To the right is 0, so just make it say 50. All right, so not a lot to do up here until we've got 20 miles to our top of descent. This is where it's figured out, the computer's figured out we should start descending down. So we're going to wait until we're 20 miles away, and then we're going to start discussing our descent into Sydney. So just give me 1 second here. I won't be too mean to you. All right, Captain, looking inside. Anything you noticed that's a bit different? In your eye line there somewhere?
The caution lights come on.
We've got a master caution, Captain. So I'm going to take over. Because you don't trust your first officer to fix any problems, you're going to take over. I'm going to be watching the plane fly itself. You have a QRH, Captain. So this fat book here is how we deal with any emergency situation. Now, if we had something serious like an air pressurization problem or an engine in the fire, there are little recall things that you have to do straight away. And you'll know to do them, and then you'll check it, but you will still check it. Now, so you have a whole list of different things it can be. On my side, it says HYD. So can you think? There you go, exactly right. So if we go to any one of these, and just looking on that page, can you see hydraulics anywhere there?
13.
And go to 13, Captain. And I'm watching the plane, making sure it's still working okay while you work methodically through the problem, and I'm just checking. Yep, that looks good. So what's the problem? Can you remember where hydraulics are up on the overhead panel there? Well, orange light is what you're looking for because orange means bad. There you go. So you can see we have low pressure in our engine 1. So read through here, see if you can see low pressure anywhere.
Yep, 13.1.
There you go. So let's read that one. So we obviously, I mean, that's fairly self-explanatory that we have a low pressure in the hydraulic pump. So what's the condition? What should we do there?
Turn it off.
Out and up. Excellent. Now, if you go down to this note here, what does that note say?
One pump supplies sufficient pressure for normal system operation.
Okay, so we still have another pump going here, and if we wanted to, we could transfer these over there as well. So we'd have 3 pumps still to go.
Okay.
So, Captain, you have to make a captain's decision now and go, do we turn around and go back to Canberra, or do we follow on to Sydney? We're almost exactly halfway.
Continue on.
We have about 70 miles to go, and we've travelled about 70 miles, so I think that's a pretty good idea, Captain. Considering that there's no danger at the moment, yes, we have 1 less pump, but we have 3 other ones to take care of it. So that's that's not uncommon. Well, that is uncommon. You don't see that every day, but that's how you'd work out the problem. You discuss it between yourself, but you'd be the one ultimately making the call. So as long as you're happy for it to stay low pressure, that makes sense because it's off. You can push that button in. There you go. Well solved. All right, so now we're getting pretty close to our top of descent. So we've put in a request to descend down, which the air traffic control have given us. So I've just moved the altitude from 18,000 to 5,000. So if now, when we hit the top of descent, it'll actually start going down.
Okay.
If you kept this at 18,000, you'd fly straight through it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't descend unless this thing told it to. So that makes sense?
Yeah.
So now we're going to make sure when we get to this bit, we're actually going to start descending down. Now, if I zoom out even more from 20 miles to 40 miles, this green circle is a 25-mile line radius from the runway. That, as a general rough rule, should be when we're passing through 10,000 feet. So we've put that one in the guide to let us know whether we're going to be too high or too low or anything like that. So once we reach this top of descent, which you can see on your one, it's getting nice and close, 5 mile radius there. And we'll think about coming into Sydney. So going into Sydney, we're going to be at 303 knots and 18,000 feet. Not what we want. Let's go to our departure arrivals page. Now we've got the Sydney weather, and it's very similar to the weather in Canberra, which is not surprising. So let's go to the arrival page of Sydney, and the runway we're going to use is 34 right. So next page, yep, 34, 34 left, 34 right. ILS, 34 right, push that button in. That's it. Perfect. And that's all looking pretty good there. Let's transition, say, click this NDEV. Oh, no, sorry. Have you ever heard of a star before?
Yeah, sort of, kind of.
Standard arrival. So these are routes that make air traffic control jobs easier, so everyone has to use the same route in. Click Rivet 2 for me. Yep. So now we can hit the... Oh, sorry, I'll zoom you out so you can see here. So you can see there's a white dotted line there as well.
Yeah.
And you can see it's got a lot more waypoints in here.
Yeah.
So now if you click execute for me, that yellow light means both pilots have to check it.
Okay.
Let's go back to the legs page now for me. Yep. See, there's a route discontinuity. So you can see it's going to Sydney and then it's coming back out to Rivet. So we're going in and then coming back out.
Yeah.
That's not what we want. So click Rivet and then click it over the top of that one there, and you've just brought everything up.
Yeah.
So now you can see, instead of going into Sydney and then back out here, it's just going to come out this way. So execute that one for me. It's looking a bit better, but I think we still have to use, there's no link going from Nasho to there. So if you go to the next page button for me, there you go. So we got another problem here. So click bow big. That's it. Previous page. And we'll go into where the vector is there. So up the top. That's it. Looking in here, that's looking a bit better. If you execute this one for me, that's it. Perfect. So now, bring this, it's in map mode at the moment. Bring it to plan. Yep, that's it. I'm going to zoom you in. So you can see this is the line that's going to follow. So step through each line here. So push the step button. It's going from Rivet, yep. It's going to Tammy, yep. This is looking good. It's coming out this way. And then it's coming in there. So there's no discontinuity. It's all one thing. So we're coming out this way. Yeah. Chances are when we're in 25 miles, you're going to get vectored anyway. So it means that instead of following this, you'll get told to turn right onto a certain heading, and you go in that way. But if you wanted to, if we didn't hear that, this is now the route that we would take into Sydney. And if you look in here, instead of arriving at Sydney at 18,000 feet, it's descending down. At Tammy, we're going to be at 10,000. When we get down to Duduk, 7,000, and it's bringing us in. It's slowing ourselves down as well. And then look at that, we're going to be 240 knots at 1,600 feet, which may be a bit quick, but we will turn the autopilot off at that point anyway. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, let's bring that back to map mode. I am overloading you with information here.
No, I'm taking it in.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no.
All right.
Do we have to arm the speed brake, or?
We do. We have lots of stuff we still need to talk about. But let's first go. We'll go to the approach page here. So if you go to the approach page here, it's telling us if we land with the flaps at 40, this is the perfect speed. Flaps at 30, that's the perfect speed. So we don't even have to remember any speeds here. So we're going to land with the flap setting at 30, which means the ideal speed will be 145 knots. Now, there's nothing wrong with being 5 knots faster than that. There's a lot wrong with being 5 knots slower than that. So so we'll always plus 5 knots to that. So we're expecting to land at 150 knots. Now, if you, at the moment, notice how there's no green light down here, click flaps 30, because that's the one we're going to land at, and bring it into the flap speed here. Now you know what speed you should maintain coming into land, so you don't ever have to look away from this screen. Now the ILS frequency is 109.30. Let's dial in 0.30 here. So the top one, bring it to the left, and then transfer it back into the active, and the course, which is the heading, 335. So up here, 335, and that means we'll be able to engage the auto landing if you want to see how that works. Perfect. All right, it's all looking good. Now we need to think about our landing. Exactly right. We'll arm our auto brake first. Now 3-4 left is a nice long runway for a 737. So we're
on 3-4 right.
3-4 right. Sorry, both of them. This is a nice long runway, so we can bring it to 2. Thank you for correcting me there. That's it. Perfect, and now we can arm the speed brake. We may need to use it at some point. In fact, we're just 10 knots faster than the speed we're trying to maintain. So if we're 10 knots faster, we can use the speed brake. So bring that out and bring it back here until we get back down to 303 knots. So you keep a finger on it or a hand on it so you don't forget. And when it comes back down to 303, there you go, perfect. You can bring it back just into the armed position rather than the lock. So push it down onto that little bump there. Drop it there. Lift up. Drop it there. Perfect. Speed brake armed. Nice. And you can see we're about to hit the 25-mile line, and we're actually a tiny bit high, about 2,000 feet high. Nothing we really need to worry about just yet. We'll still lose the height that we need. We're all looking rather nice here, but it's good to know that anyway. All right. So through these clouds you're going to see Sydney in a second. But you got your auto brake armed, your speed brake armed. We're looking to pass through 10,000 feet, because remember then we'll change the measurement back to something a lot more accurate, 1009 hectopascals, and we'll also bring some lights on so we're nice and visible when there's more planes around. So there's no reason not to do that now. So you can bring those two, just those two down. That's it, and then we'll do these ones just before we land.
Okay.
All right, looking really good. Yeah, but we'll come through. I think this is like a Disney movie, right? So you're coming through the cloud here, and you just see, beautiful Sydney in the background. Okay, cool. So looking good. So mine's now going on the descent page. You can see when we hit 10,000 feet, it's going to try and restrict the speed down to 240 knots. So as we pass through, there you go, 240. So now it's going to lift that nose up a little bit, reduce the rate of descent, but it means, look, we start slowing down there. So I'm going to help us out with that speed brake so we get down nice and quickly. But that's, so that makes sense what we're doing there.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So now that we're pretty close to, or we are within 25 miles of it, let's bring the standard of measurement in by pushing that one in. And then we might get vectored here just a little bit. So instead of coming out here and going this way, if air traffic control came over the radio and was like, the Qantas 001, turn right, sorry, what heading are we on? Yeah, so turn right, heading 0, let's go 100, 100. So you turn that, yep, but nothing happens because it's still following the computer. So what we do, instead of following LNAV, we hit heading select. Hitting heading select means it's no longer following the computer, it's now following that purple line. So you put that purple line there.
Yeah, right,
So this is what happens when you start getting vectored for other traffic and that sort of thing. Yeah, you like that? Now what would happen if we needed to descend sort of a bit quicker than we're doing right now? We could actually, instead of using the VNAV, we can use our own one here. So let's descend down to 3,000 feet. So bring that, say we've been cleared to 3,000 and vertical speed is exactly right. Hit vertical speed, bring that up, say minus 1,500, shall we say? And you're telling it to descend down at 1,500 feet a minute, down to 3,000 feet. All making sense so far?
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, I am not happy, or you're not happy as well, that we're still going to be at 220 knots when we're at 2,000 feet above the runway there. We want to be more at about 160, that sort of thing. So we can change it now, or we've changed it off VNAV onto our MCP speed. So whatever speed we put in there, the throttle will do whatever it needs to do. So if you, that's it, you can bring that down. Keep your hand on it. You're manipulating that purple line, that purple bug. Bring it down to your flaps up speed there, because that's the minimum speed you're capable of flying at with your flap setting up. Nicely done. That's it. Nicely done. Okay, so you can see that we're going out this way, and we're going to cross this line. That white dotted line is an extension of the runway, so we can use that to line ourselves up. So we never really look out our window. Really, we're just looking in here, doing whatever we're told. So let's say, yeah, this is actually looking really nice here. Now, this time, see how we're holding 244 knots and it's trying to get down to 209? As long as we're below 250 knots, we don't have to use the speed brake. We could maybe use our flaps, right?
Yeah.
Could add a bit of drag outside.
So
Bring the flaps from 0 to 1. This one here, that's it. What I say about a lazy first offset. Just doing that. That first panel's popped off the back. You can see that it's given us a bit of lift, so it's trimmed for us. And now it's going down.
Okay, yeah.
Nicely done. All make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to increase our rate of descent to make sure we get down. And you can see how these red boxes have come out to the 250 line. That's your overspeed warning. So if we actually ended up going into the 250, then you'd hear a warning saying you're going too fast. And then obviously if we brought the flaps out past 5 to 10, actually let's do that just to show you. Bring the flaps to 10 for me. So drop it, bring it up and down to the 10. Watch those red boxes. Oh, sorry. So with this, it's got to go past the 5 first, so it'll take a while. All right. So now, if you hit this VOR lock button for me, that's it. So there you go. That's that warning that you hear. So hitting that VOR lock button has changed it onto VOR lock here. It is now no longer following that purple line. It's now following this white dotted line in here. So now, that's lining itself up. If I zoom you in here, it's lining itself up with that white dotted line.
Yeah, okay.
Pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And we're over the ocean.
We are over the ocean, so we're going to land on the one that goes over Botany Bay.
Yeah.
We're going to come into land, and then we'll do a quick touch and go. We're going to be a little bit late for dinner. Sorry, Kat. We get excited talking about this sort of thing.
Oh, here we come.
Yep, we're getting down there. So our auto brake's armed. Our speed brake will be armed. Let's bring your lights on. Down, 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 down. That's it. Looking really good here. So we're still getting down. Just waiting for this magenta diamond to come up. So we're trying to get under our what's called a glide slope here.
Oh, okay. To the runway.
There you go. So this is becoming active. So you can see it's acquiring the right altitude wherever we put this. And now when this is on the other side, it means that we can push the, wait for it. Now if we hit this app button for me, it's gone on to GS. So now it's going to descend at the perfect speed as well. Let's get landing gear out and down so we have something to land on. That's it. I'm going to bring my flaps to 15. Which means we can slow down some more, down to 160 knots. Oh, you can do it for me. Put that purple thing onto that flap 15 speed there.
What was it?
Depends on your fuel, so it's never an exact speed. It just depends on what your weight is. So this is looking rather nice. You can see it descending down. So we have one more stage of flap to go, Captain. Can you bring the flap to 30, second last line here? And remember, we're going to plus 5 to that speed there, so 150 is what you're going to put in there. Now, if you hit, at the moment it says single channel, 151's fine. See that single channel? Push this button.
Oh, sorry.
Push this button.
Yeah.
Goes to CMD. That you've engaged both the captain's and the first officer's speed auto throttle. So if one was to brake at this point, it'd still try and like the other one would still work.
Okay.
So now your job's done for the day. So this blows my mind. So if we just put your feet on the pedals, because that's what you're going to use to steer on the ground. Now we're going to turn off your auto brake. So that's what you would have done. But now that we're going to be a little bit unrealistic, turning it off, push the speed brake back into the lock position. And that's it. When we come into land, I'm going to turn off the autopilot. You're going to put your hand on the throttle, and you're going to give yourself full power, and we're going to take off again. Sound like a plan? So no, you don't even have to do that. Watch the throttle come back. There you go. Feet on the pedals. Not that you really need to. There's your landing done, Captain. You would bring the reverse thrust up now. Not that you're going to. Nope. Sorry. Give yourself full power for me. That's it. Hands on the yoke. Waiting for me to say rotate. I'll set your speed and rotate. So bring it back towards you. And we're off. Feet off the pedals. Eyes inside up to the 15-degree line, and you have to do the landing gear this time because you've lost your first officer. So get it to 15 first. Let go now. Just let go. That's it. Landing gear all the way out, all the way up. How was that, man? You're going to sleep well tonight. All right, so let's turn around to the left. So get this triangle in the gap. Like by turning left with this, get the triangle in the gap between the big line and the small line here. I'm going to set our speed of 230 knots. Let the drop go down to the 10-degree line. and then we'll speed up as well as climb up. Perfect, that's enough. It's enough of a turn. Let that go down to the 10, and when it's at the 10, try and just pull back however much you need. No need to turn though. It's a bit of a weird one compared to smaller planes. Just pull straight back. That's it. Now if you keep that on the 10-degree line, look at that, we're speeding up and climbing up.
Yeah.
And when we see about 2,700, push down to the 5-degree line, and we'll try and make it so that number stops moving. And we're going to change it over to nighttime. So let me get rid of all this stuff so it doesn't get in your way. There we go. And I'll move this purple line over. So push, get that dot on the 5-degree line for me. Fight those engines under our wings. So screen's going to turn right for me. Get the bottom triangle and top triangle lined up. Keep turning until they are. Keep turning, keep turning, keep turning. Perfect. All right, screen's going to go blank for a second. And when we come back, you're going to learn why we fly using those screens in front of us there. Because even though you know that there's land and water out there and sky,
sometimes it can't be because you don't see anything.
Yeah, well, you can't differentiate. So give that a push, and you know that there's water. Give it a push so you can see. Push that way. That's it. Better. And turn to the right a little bit more. In fact, put this CMD button on for a second. This one here. Let go of the controls. Push heading select. That's it. Perfect. And we'll descend down to 3,000 feet. So looking outside, you know that there's sky and water, but it's very difficult to differentiate, right?
Yeah.
This is what happens at night time when you add a thunderstorm in as well. So even though you know that there's stuff out there, you can't see anything. But you know where the airport is. You know where we are. You know what height we're at. You know we're clear of any terrain because there's no color on it. You know what's happening with your plane. So yes, it's not nice not being able to look outside, but we're going to put a weather radar on. But it's not like nothing. Yeah, I just pushed that for you. Sorry. Okay. So now we know where the best and worst parts of the storm are. So there's nothing wrong with not being able to see outside. It's not nice, but there's nothing wrong with it. So I know you've seen the auto landing system now. So how do you feel about maybe bring us in for a hand fly at night time in a thunderstorm?
I can try.
Give it a crack.
I'll give it a crack.
Bring your flaps to 1 for me, which means you're capable of slowing down. And then slow yourself down. Yep, put your hand on that. Look at the purple thing. Put it onto the flap 1 speed. So every time you bring the flaps out, another number appears. Well, that's my fault. It's the pressurization issue there. Beautiful. All right, turning off your autopilot. Push that button in. It'll make a noise so you can't do it by accident. Push it in again for me. That's a are you sure? Yes, we are. Turn to the left. Get that triangle in the gap between the big line and the small line over there. So yep, turn left. I know it's counterintuitive. It'll move that way. Just turn left for me. Get that triangle in the gap between the big line and the small line. That's a 20-degree turn. 30-degree turn. We want a 25-degree turn. Perfect. Keeping that on the 5-degree line for me means that as we slow down, we're going to start descending down, but at a nice smooth and steady rate. So see how as we're slowing down, just starting to descend there? Perfect, that's it. Awesome. So see how it's just dipped below that 5-degree line? Yeah, you can bring that back up for me by pulling back, exactly right. Perfect. All right, landing gear. Always helps to have some wheels to land on, out and down. I'm going to arm your auto brake. I'm going to bring it to 3 because we're in a storm, and I'm going to arm your speed brake and bring all your lights on, which they are. Now I'm going to swap your attention into this screen. See how you have a weird donkey-like tail? That's called a trend vector. That's where you're going to be in 30 seconds time. Turn to the left for me and give it a push at the same time. Don't look over here, turning left, just push at the same time. I'll let you know when to stop. Keep turning, keep turning, keep turning, keep turning. Stop there. Stop turning. So that's where you're going to be in 30 seconds time. That's the center line of the runway there. So we're going to line ourselves up out here, and we don't want much of the line on this side, so we're just going to turn to the right now, peel that bit back on to that white dotted line, and that means in 30 seconds you're going to be perfectly lined up. So stop turning now. Stop, stop, stop. So in 30 seconds, it'll be just a small right turn to get ourselves back in line. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm going to bring your flaps to 15, slow you down to 160. You're just going to pay attention in here. Start turning right for me. That's it. And stop there for a sec. So this is the heading line there. We're just going to do a small right turn to line ourselves up with that one. So just getting the world's smallest right turn. That's enough. That's enough. That's heaps. That's heaps. That's heaps. So back to the left now. Just get your wings level. Left, 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 left. A little bit more left. Keep turning left. Getting those triangles together. That's it. Better. That's enough. Looking outside. You haven't looked outside once and you perfectly lined yourself up with that runway. Very, very nice, man. So no need to do left or rights too much. In fact, turn back to the right because we're in a small turn and we're getting pushed around quite a lot. That's enough. Perfect.
I didn't realise there was a big thunderstorm out there.
Yeah, bring the flaps to 30, Captain, because you've done everything else. And that means landing speed, this time 149. So 149 can go in there for me. All right, draw a line from here to the start of that runway. Try and keep that runway in the middle of the screen there. So just look outside, just look outside. If that runway starts moving down in the window, push. Do you feel like it's moving down? It means we're flying over the top. That's right. So give it a push. Try and get it back in the middle of the windshield there. That's better. And now if it starts moving up in that window, you're going to pull back. And you're just going to get us right at the start of that runway. Good luck, Captain. Just pulling back just a little bit more. That's it. Perfect. I'll stop that. That's enough. Perfect. Really nice. When you hit 200, Captain, push these buttons in with your thumb and pinky in here. It's going to turn off your auto throttle. Yeah, left turn. Perfect. That's heaps. That's heaps. Push these buttons in on the thumb and pinky. Turns off your auto throttle. That's it. And then back to the right now. And 100, power down. Bring the power all the way down. No left or rights. This is so perfect. Pulling back a little bit. Greased it. Steering with your feet. Reverse thrust now, so bring nice and gently. That's it. I'm going to stop you, bring it all the way over. That's it. Very, very nice. Such a driver. And that's how you do it hand flying. A little bit more to it when you actually have to hand fly it, right? All right, bring that reverse thrust all the way back down. Unfortunately, we have run out of time and we don't get to make it back to the terminal, but hopefully you had a bit more fun instead. So Captain Brad, that is how you fly Boeing 737s. Congratulations, mate. I think you sleep well tonight. I just talked at you for about an hour and 7 minutes.
That was brilliant.